bright light shining through that back door, so I can't see your faces. Are there any gardeners in here, or wannabe gardeners? Wannabe gardeners. It's kind of challenging up here, isn't it? That's why we had a good turnout for Rana's landscaping class. It's so challenging. We have, in some places, really rocky soil. Actually, it's not rocky soil, it's a rock. Granite slabs about 3 inches down. We have those adorable critters, the little ones and the big ones. It can be really challenging to have a garden up here. Do you ever feel like you're the personal shopper for the deer and wildlife? You go over to Sierra Western Nursery, buy a bunch of beautiful flowers, put them in the ground. Next morning you wake up and you go out there and they're nibbled to nothing. And it's like, oh, a $5, $20 salad for the wildlife. But spring comes around and it's really hard to resist, like those packets of seeds. You know, you just get inspired and enthused and you buy a bunch of seeds. And do they all get put in the ground? Not always. We get busy or it starts getting too hot, so they all don't end up in the ground. About a month ago, I found a couple of unopened bean seed packets. I thought, oh great, I'm going to plant these. And I have a very small protected area that I planted them in. Good soil, protected from the wildlife, water, mulched, everything. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Who to blame? Myself. Because you see, those packets of seeds had been sitting on the shelf for a year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. But they were no longer viable. So, our spiritual life, our spiritual growth is something like that. When we learn a spiritual principle, a spiritual lesson, do we use it or do we put it on the shelf? Spiritual principles such as mental equivalence, forgiveness, gratitude, the law of cause and effect. We must use these principles for them to have a meaningful and positive effect in our lives. Now, a lot of these principles will work whether or not we are consciously and positively using them. So, consciously and positively are two important words. To manifest that which we want for ourselves, and I emphasize for ourselves because we can certainly treat and pray for others. We do this all the time. And we can treat for their highest good, but I want to put in a little note that we can't treat for someone else to do what we want them to do. Do you understand the difference? And sometimes in the Frog Box we get requests where people request that we pray for a certain loved one to do something they want them to do. And it's not ethically in our toolbox to do that when it's an issue where there's free choice and free will. Now, if a person comes to us and they say they want strength and confidence to make a hard decision, we certainly can pray for that. But for you to want someone else to do something exactly the way you want them to do it, that doesn't work. So I digressed a little bit, but let me say, let me find my spot here. To manifest that which we want for ourselves, we open our minds to the spiritual lessons, we learn and use the spiritual tools so that we may implement the spiritual principles. We do it now, in the now, we don't put them on the shelf. Now, my bean analogy is a little bit off point because, unlike the beans that are no longer viable, the spiritual principles are always viable. But in order for them to work in our lives, we have to get them out, we have to use them, we have to put them into practice. You've often heard Betty up here say, nothing's too small to treat for, nothing's too big, nothing's too small. So I'm going to end with a little story. And this is in the category of nothing's too small. But a number of months back, and some of you have heard this story, a number of months back, my husband, Ken, was invited to play in a poker game. He loves poker. And so he's really excited. But it was a last-minute invitation, and he needed $10 for the buy-in. Well, on that particular day, we didn't have $10 in our wallets or the house. I must have gone to Sierra Western Nursery the day before because we didn't have it. And I don't know that I can explain it exactly, but somehow I just had this calm assurance that everything was going to work out just fine. Later that morning, I went out for my afternoon walk along the street, and as I usually do, I take along my grabber and my bag to pick up trash. And halfway into my trek, lo and behold, I look down, and what do I see? A $10 bill. And that, my friends, is manifestation.
Yeah. All right.